Hello and welcome to this recording of the CPD that took place on the 3rd of August 2017 for tips on planning on your feet. This recording is for if you weren't able to attend in the office so that you get a brief overview of what was discussed. The purpose of this training is not to advocate planning on your feet, but to give tips for those situations when you are on supply and are prepared to teach Year 5 and find out you are actually in Year 1 with no planning and no whiteboard. I am Melissa Cross and I am the primary coordinator. Prior to this, I was a primary teacher for 4 years, and for a short time of this, I was a supply teacher for academic appointments and would like to use this knowledge to try help you working on day-to-day supply. When we receive a call from schools in the morning, we do our best to find out the most information possible to help you. However, with the best will in the world, and as you will all know, things change in school quickly. You could turn up to teach a Year 4 class all day, then be in early years in the morning and Year 6 in the afternoon. So how can you be prepared for these situations? Now, I know that was a question that I always considered at the time. The way that I worked around this was I created resource and planning bags for each year group that contained a full day's planning and the resources to help with that. I kept each bag in my car boot should anything change in the school day. The way I felt really prepared was planning these around a hook or a topic of the curriculum that I felt passionate about. This meant all the planning was age-related, differentiated around this topic for each year group, and was cross-curricular to create a theme and a purpose throughout the day. So to give you some example of these hooks that I used and based my planning around it, is I've used a magic potion, which I linked to Harry Potter for Key Stage 2. So I just had a glass jar that I made from pretty much a jam jar and made to look like a potion pot. I used red cherry washing up liquid and added glitter. I used this in the planning all that day, so what it meant was when I brought the potion into the classroom, the children were really excited and we talked about where it come from, what we thought it would happen, and this inspired the planning, and I was able to link this through the curriculum to all areas of the curriculum, which I'll discuss later. Another hook that I've used, this was more in Key Stage 1 and the early years, was a cauldron, which I linked to the story room on the broom. I used a plastic cauldron and cut out black felt, which fit perfectly in the bottom. I then put coins in and covered it with this felt so they were hidden. Now this was really good because the children were really excited about this cauldron, and we had a magic wand and we talked about how if we were to do a spell we could make magic happen. Now this was really important because it linked to the English, so we looked at rhyming words, so they were able to come up with spells. And then when this worked, obviously the cauldron could, I shook the cauldron and then out fell the coins that were previously hidden. We also linked this to maths with recognising money and the coins, and did some adding, and obviously in Year 2 we did about adding up money and took it a little more into depth. So it was one resource that I could link throughout the whole day. Another example of a resource that I've used, this was particularly good in the early years, was a plastic alien egg. This was actually something that came in over a series of lessons, but it could have been used for one day as well. So what I did is I had 3 different sized teddy bears that were aliens and this plastic egg. So it started off with the smallest alien in the egg, and it meant throughout the week the egg could slightly start to hatch, and we stuck the tail of the alien out, and then slowly the alien came out of the egg, and then obviously this really inspired the children's writing to think about the names. We talked about signs, what comes from an egg, what could be coming out of the egg prior to the egg hatching, and then the children had to work out how we were going to look after it, so they were writing instructions on how to look after the alien, and basically a few days later I then swapped the smaller alien for a slightly bigger alien, so the children were mesmerised thinking that the alien had started to grow. And then later on we actually went on a hunt to try find Mum, which was instructions delivered, and we actually ended up going to another area in school, and we followed the instructions and we found the Mum, and then from this the children designed rockets and a letter to send back them both back to space together. So it was kind of linked to a lot of different things. The children were measuring the alien, they were thinking about the science and understanding the world for the early years, about eggs and how to look after another thing. Another hook I've used is an old key. That's kind of worked in previous lessons. What's it going to open? It's really inspired the Key Stage 2 writing, because it opened a magic gate. Does it open a door in school? You know, and the children have kind of solved problem solving work to do with this. And another, you know, if you have got access to a whiteboard, is the literacy shed or the math shed, which I find particularly useful. The literacy shed, you'll see the link below, has videos in which are silent, so the children, you can kind of really get the children's writing going, and it's also got tips on there that are linked to the curriculum, so it's really quick for you to kind of pull up and actually come up with a lesson quite quickly, that actually is really inspiring and really gets the children thinking. There are many other hooks like this that you can use. I mean, you can use a nice hand with an object concealed, and I'm sure that you would be able to come up with many creative ideas. But the point of this was that I could have that one object, and then do some simple planning for each of the year groups that was cross-curricular, in order to teach a day's planning, but have that real purpose and excitement for the day of teaching based around this object. Now, you're probably thinking, how did I do this? So I've just put together really quickly just an example of how I was prepared for this. So when we're looking back to the potion that I discussed, this is kind of something that I put together for a Year 5 class, but also a Year 6 class as well. And it's, as you can see, I've linked it directly to the curriculum. My learning objectives are differentiated in order for the children to achieve this. So in maths, I kind of linked to the volume of the potions and using scales, and then converting for the Year 6s. And then in the English, we really focused on that good storytelling and using concept mapping and really getting those creative languages and the children thinking. And then in science, we looked at how materials change, obviously, when the potion's used. So we looked at like Coke with bicarbonate soda in there, and how things change state, which meant there was a whole excitement around the potion for the whole day. Now, this part of the training, the candidates that attended this training were able to have a think themselves about how they would potentially do this. Now, I've shared some of my ideas in this recording of how I used a cauldron and linked it to the room on the broom for the early years in Key Stage 1. I'm sure you can come up with other ideas of how to do that. And these were particularly successful, and the candidates that attended came up with even more creative ideas, and could really see how this hook could create excitement for a full day and make that teaching come to life for that short time that you're with those children. Please feel free to have a go yourself at using these cross-curricular methods. As explained, I only needed these objects and then the planning, and then I had the worksheets that they're ready for the children. And it just meant that the learning was much more creative, more inspiring. The children were engaged in the time that I was with them, but it also meant for those moments when I'm thrown into Year 6, when I thought I was in Year 1, I still had my exciting lesson planned out. I had that bag in my car and I was ready. So it just meant that even though I was thrown into the environment, I didn't have a whiteboard. I could plan on my feet because I had a solid thing in place with the link to the curriculum. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me via email or contact the office. And if you would like me to share any of these resources for you, and pictures of the resources I've used in the past, or you'd like to see any more examples of my planning, please get in touch. Thanks very much for listening. Bye.